All right. Who wants to share some exciting news from the weekend? Anything anyone is grateful for or appreciative of? Any cool real estate or non-real estate stuff happened to us this weekend that we want to share?
Bill,
Yes, ma'am.
I spent Saturday and Sunday delivering the wine wagon. So I closed last Thursday on my neighbor's house. We
Yeah.
sold it. And so I went and purchased a bunch of bottles of wine, and I walked the neighborhood, and it opened up some great conversations. People loved that I was giving them something instead of asking for something from them.
Yes.
So yeah, delivered the wine and had very good conversations. One neighbor, her and her husband are on the fence. I've talked to them several times. They're on the fence about selling. And
Yep.
then another neighbor, he said, you know what, Mary, I'm not interested in selling, but I love your style. Can I have some of your business cards to give them out to family and friends?
That is awesome. That is awesome. So there's so much in what you just said that needs to be highlighted. So one is people like to receive rather than being asked for stuff, right? So
Right.
whenever we're on the telephone or whether we're in person or whatever it may be, many of us kind of naturally think to ourselves, what can I extract from this conversation, right? What's in it for me? Well, interestingly enough, they're thinking the same thing, right? So if you just find out what it is they want from that conversation and deliver it to them, then you make them happy, which is the whole point. Then ultimately you'll get what you want in the appropriate time. So awesome job there. When you wrote me this weekend and said wine wagon, I'm like, what's a wine wagon? So you just went around with a wagon with a bunch of wines in it, or a bunch of
Yep.
wine bottles in it?
Yep. I got a wagon and tied some big smiley face balloons to the back of it.
Mhm.
And filled it full of wine, and just went around, and people even driving by were honking and thumbs up, laughing and stuff. People were stopping me in the street and asking me what I was doing. And it was very, very well received. I enjoyed it. It was the most fun I've ever had in marketing, Bill.
Yeah, it's probably the and wait till you get a piece of business from it. You'll turn that, I don't know how much you spent on a bottle of wine, but whatever it is, it'll be really a great turnaround to parlay that into a $15,000 commission check, right?
Right. And I got the wine at Aldi, $3 a bottle.
Wow.
And nobody said, Mary, that's cheap wine. Everybody was grateful to get it.
There you go. So it's even the very small, financially small gestures that are viewed in a positive way. So gosh, man, that's awesome. Congratulations on your closing as well, Mary.
Thank you. And I wrote my first buyer contract last night, and I'm excited. We are one of 30 plus bids, and I'm anxiously waiting to hear from that. So,
all right, don't forget, let me give you everyone a tip or a couple of tips on winning multiple offers. We got plenty of videos on the YouTube about very specific suggestions, but remember, it's not always about price. I mean, it is more often than not, but it's not always about price. It could be, hey, I don't want to pay closing costs, or hey, I want to stay in the home for 2 weeks after closing. So one of the things you always want to do is, and I'm sure, Mary, you've done this stuff, call the other agent and say, hey, I'm Mary, and I got one of the best buyers I've ever worked with. Hey, you're being honest, right? It's the best buyer
right.
you've ever worked with. Is that true?
And I did. I called the agent yesterday before, because the buyers and I had a conversation in my car on the way back, and they're my next door neighbors, so I know them very well. And we had a conversation on the way back home, and we put a plan together. And then after I called her, I had to go back over and we had to put another plan together, because I said, what is the owner looking for? The seller looking for? And she said, highest and best, no contingencies, none. So I went back over and we talked, and we put another plan together. And I wrote a letter talking about, that they're not only my buyers, but they are my next door neighbors. They've lived in a house for 44 years. They raised their children in this house. I see the whole family gather every Sunday. Mom cooks breakfast for everyone, and they hang out. And this is the only home they have, and it really was the only home that they thought they could move to.
Right.
They felt very. So I wrote a kind of a heartstring, pulling string letter. And we'll see, how that went. I think that works more so on females than it does men. So with men, I think it's more show me the money,
Maybe so, but it's not going to hurt. It's definitely not going to hurt. I would also say, and we've suggested this in the past, is having the buyer's lender, if there's a lender involved, call the seller, or I'm sorry, call the listing agent and say, hey, this is Kathy Vitale. I'm with Shelter Home Mortgage. I'm representing, Joe Stevens. He's he's submitted an offer on your listing. He's working with Mary Steele, who's one of my favorite agents. I just want to let you know that I've reviewed all his financials. Everything looks good. It should be a nice, smooth transaction. He's super well qualified, very cooperative, picks up the phone every time I need something. So you should have no issue if you decide to select this person, which I highly recommend, right?
Right. I got a letter from the finance officer, but that would be even better, a phone call. Yes.
Well, remember, everyone's getting a letter from the finance officer, right? That's
Right.
So we want to make sure that if we want to win in a situation where we're competing with 30 plus other offers, we're going to have to do something, a little unusual. We might walk by that listing agent's office with the wine wagon today. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Hey, Bill, can I share?
Yeah, please.
So I did something uncomfortable over the weekend as well too with my listing. I went and handed out flyers to the neighbors about open house, and I had some good conversation. And when I went to the open house, some of the neighbors was like, "Hey, are you Markia?" And we started conversation. So that was pretty cool. The open house was a great success. Chantrell helped me. In the process before the open house at 12, I showed my client 3 homes, and one of them had to have an offer in by 4 o'clock. So in the middle of the open house, I was writing a contract. So it was a very interesting day yesterday.
Nice. Remember, if you know you're going to buy you got a buyer who wants to buy something, nothing's stopping you from starting the contract before they're technically ready, right? Just work on having it organized and written. And when the person says, okay, 123 Hill Street, that's the one.
We had just seen it. We just had seen it at 11 o'clock, and the open house was at 12, and it didn't end. So it wasn't where I could put the offer in prior to. So we had just saw it prior to the open house.
Oh, all I was suggesting is writing it behind the scenes. So like if it's written and ready, and it's like, you've already organized the the type of financing that they're going to get, and you've already filled out any stipulations or what the earnest money is going to be and these kind of things, then you can it just takes less time to write the offer when you're under the gun, right?
Yeah.
Nice job. I'll tell you, every single person so far. You got 7 offers?
Yeah, so we'll make a decision today.
You should go knock all those doors around there. I was just about to say, I remember very specifically that neighborhood many years ago when I was selling in this area. And I'm telling you, no one has ever dreamed that they could sell their homes for upwards of $300,000 in that neighborhood.
Right.
I'm telling you right now, those homes used to go in the low ones, right? I mean, a lot of neighborhoods can say similar things, but these are a lot of people that this is one of the less expensive neighborhoods in the North Fulton area, and these people, they have a lot of equity that they're not accustomed to having. So this is this could be a super windfall for you, Markia. I'm so excited. Congratulations.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, I got a lot I want to cover today, guys. Greta, actually, you had your hand up. You so politely raised your hand. What would you like to share?
Just briefly, y'all know I've had these ladies for forever, and we went out again. I have written contracts every weekend. I've taken them out every weekend. I just got a text, and I may cry. We're the top bid on the one I showed yesterday. And I did have my lender call because they said in the thing they wanted top dollar and strong financing, local financing. So I had my girl call and say, oh, we're a local office, blah, 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 blah.
Perfect.
And I may pass out at some point at this because I just need to move on.
Where's the wine wagon today, Mary? I think Greta might need one.
Congratulations, Greta. That's awesome.
That is awesome. That is grit and persistence. Okay.
I was going to say, way to persevere. That is
wow.
That even feels better than if it were just easy, because you work so hard for this.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Awesome, Greg. Yay, I'm so happy.
Awesome. All right, I got a lot of things I want to cover today. I want to make sure that everyone takes a very detailed look at the calendar for this week. There's a handful of things that have changed times. Candace and I are both in, Candace has taken some additional training this week, and we're both in spring masterminds this week on Wednesday and Thursday. Look at this, I got this cool thing from Maps. Y'all like that? Anyway, the group number 1, small group number 1 is going to meet at 1 o'clock on Friday instead of the normal time. Small group number 2 is going to meet 8 in the morning on Wednesday instead of the normal time. And there's a couple of people who I'll be reaching out to today to make adjustments to the 15-minute session. So be on the lookout for that. Also want to bring your attention to the fact that the growth and launch masterminds will be Friday at 12 o'clock. Friday at 12 o'clock. Of course, both will be recorded. And I want to remind everyone about, what is it called? Let's see. Oh, there's a ton of awesome classes this week from the Market Center. So I highlighted a bunch of them in the email that I sent out yesterday. Sam's doing a couple really good technology classes. I know Ignite starts this week. Let me just quickly mention one thing on Ignite. It doesn't look like there's probably that many people here that are going to be taking Ignite, but don't think of Ignite as work in addition to productivity coaching. Productivity coaching is just creating accountability around the assignments that you're going to get and the homework that you're going to get in Ignite. It's just creating a new and additional support group for the phone calls and the home showings and the handwritten notes and the database ads and all that stuff that you're instructed to do in Ignite. Okay, so and by the way, Ignite is only 2 hours or 2.5 hours. You got to work a little bit more than that each day, ideally. Okay. I also want to chat a little bit about the reporting. So this month, I've learned my lesson. I know it's a little confusing with the ways the days went in April. This week or this month, we've been going Thursday to Wednesday on the weeks. And I know that's a little challenging with the weekly report. So I apologize, but please, we're in the middle of week number 3 right now. So take a moment and catch up if you are, if you don't have everything updated. I've got all my coaching calls here early this week because of Spring Masterminds. Okay. I also want to draw your attention to one other thing that Roswell's PC group is not attending at the attendance that I'd like to see, which is the high accountability group. So the high accountability group meets every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 o'clock to 10:15. I know it's in the middle of lead gen. I totally get that. The link is in the email. And I work to send it out every single time as well. And I will send it right now. What this is a group that Robert Doyle, the Director of Career Development at GLG, hosts in his Zoom room. And everyone that's there goes around in a circle and very quickly says, what have I done in the last 2 days to create a client? And what do I intend to do over the next 2 days to create a client, right? And then 2 days later, Wednesday, you come in the group and you say what you've done. And then you say what you intend to do for the following 2 days. So it accomplishes a couple of things. Number one, it keeps you accountable to the things that you say you're going to do publicly. Number two is you get a chance to hear a bunch of other agents in your roughly production level, experience level, that kind of thing, on what ideas they're using to go find clients. So it can be a really cool learning opportunity. And you'll have additional people in the group that you can support and cheer on and that can support and cheer you on. So I'm going to encourage everyone to check that out. That's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 to 10:15. It's not about like getting advice on your particular situation. It's just simply, here's what I plan on doing in the next 2 days, and here's what I've done in the previous 2 days. Okay. And then I just want to, I'm going to give you guys a quick LinkedIn tip, and then we're going to move into Chartmasters. Okay. This week, I really want to get, by the end of this week, I want you to guys to have a very professional and robust LinkedIn profile. Okay. LinkedIn is one of the things that we're going to focus on a little bit this week. The first thing I'd like you to do is make sure you have an account. Okay. Let's start with that. And the next thing I want to encourage you to do is set up your profile. That's the goal for today. It's probably going to take you It could take you 5 minutes. It could take you a couple hours if you don't have one or you're behind or it's unorganized. We want to make sure that there's a professional picture there. The stats are pretty outrageous about how much more action people with pictures get than people without pictures on their profile. So make sure it's a professional picture, right? First impressions are very, very important. Make sure you're looking at the camera, make sure you're dressed appropriately, all that kind of thing. They have a headline, which appears right under your profile, where you have like, I think it's 200 characters or something to say like what you do. And the idea is to make it stand out from every other real estate agent that's on LinkedIn. And then there's a bio basically where the important things to talk about are who you are, who you serve, and how you serve them, or who you help and how you help them, right? So a tiny bit of background on what you are. It doesn't always have to be professional. Like if you want to share the fact that you're a mother or a father or a caregiver or a spouse or whatever it may be, it doesn't have to all be business related, right? It can be a little unique and fun. And we want to make sure that when somebody clicks on you, maybe they went to college with you or they had an old job with you, and they say, oh my gosh, look at how well put together this person is. I bet they do an awesome job helping buyers buy and helping sellers sell. So I'm going to ask everyone to take a couple minutes today and look at their LinkedIn profile and make sure that it exists, that it's got a great professional picture, and that the bio and the headline are unique and attractive. Candace, do you want to add anything on that?
I do. I wanted to say that like the attraction marketing that we did last week, one of the best ways to get followers in LinkedIn is to go back to people that you know and endorse them. It's a gift you can give them. If you worked with somebody in a different position, you can endorse them for whatever skills they have. And 9 times out of 10, or I would say maybe 6 times out of 10, they're going to respond to you because they're grateful, because people like to be endorsed. That's a nice thing. And it's also a good way to reconnect with somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time. And you might also receive some endorsements from them, which is also helpful.
So here's my recommendation on this. Candace, you are so excited for the next several days of LinkedIn. You can't control yourself, I guess. We want to make sure the profile looks awesome before we start endorsing people, because then they'll be like, who's this person, right? So we're going to talk all about endorsing and wishing people work anniversaries and happy birthdays and all the extra stuff you can do on LinkedIn. I just want to make, if your profile is top notch, absolutely, you should start to scan, your suggested connections and start to look for people that you can endorse and connect with. But first things first, you want to make sure the profile is solid so that when you do start to, initiate relationships or reinitiate relationships, then they see a tip-top profile. Sound fair?
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
There's different thinking on whether to write it in the third person or whether to write it in the first person. I've had both, and I think one, and Bill, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but one is that if you write in the first person, it's as if you're talking. It's a little bit harder to say, I'm so great. So if it's written in the third person and you really want to highlight some special things about yourself, it's a little bit easier to say, oh, Markia has tremendous ability working with buyers and a tremendous passion for getting the job done, something like that, as opposed to, I always try to get the job done. So pick your voice and stick with it consistently.
Yeah, I never thought about putting it in third person. I'm going to have to go back and look at mine and look at some others and see which one kind of resonates a little bit more with me. Thank you for that suggestion. Okay, any questions so far? All right, I'm going to share my, all right, now's the time. Now is the time. All right, hang on, I'm sharing my screen. It's almost there, I think. Okay, let's see who else chatted. Okay, perfect. Also, guys, if you do not have a professional headshot, we can make some recommendations for you on that as well. Okay. Okay. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Chartmasters. So I posted this in the announcements page a couple days ago. Chartmasters was created by a guy, an old like IBM bigwig, whose wife is an agent at the Sandy Springs Market Center of KW. And about 10 or so, a little over 10 years ago, he started developing these reports that he sells exclusively to Keller Williams. So not every Keller Williams office has them. We do have them. And there's some extra add-ons like for some of the farther out areas of Metro Atlanta, as well as a separate report for condos and townhomes, and some specific detailed reports on specific areas. This is the larger context, but I want to show you exactly, number one, how to get to this, and then I'll go through the report a little bit together. The program itself that Andy and Leslie do is going to be on the 28th, Wednesday the 28th, from 9:30 to 11. Wednesday the 28th from 9:30 to 11. That will be the one that Andy and Leslie walk everyone through. I am just going to give you, like I said the other day, I get the reports a little early, and wouldn't make any sense for me to keep them in my email box. So I'm going to share them with my friends and make sure that you have the information faster. Sound cool? Okay, so first of all, you go to mykw.kw.com. Okay. Next thing you do is you go to this little thing that says My Market Center Intranet right there. Okay, My Market Center Intranet. Then you get the little spinning wheel for a second, and then you go to associates, I think. Let's double check. Nope. You go to Market Center. Okay, and then you go to Documents. And then you go down to Chartmasters. Chartmaster Market Statistics. So you can see we have each quarter, they put together this big packet. It usually comes within a couple of weeks of the quarter ending, and it goes back, you can go back from 2016 and beyond, okay? And then they also have each month something called MMO, which is Monthly Market Overview. So in between the quarterly reports, they put out the MMO so you can know what's going on a monthly basis, okay? They have not included the 2021, but normally it would say 2021 first quarter right here, okay? And that's where this comes from. Any questions on how to find these reports? Okay, if you look here, 2020 fourth quarter, they have a toolkit on how to use the product. They have a report for condos and townhomes. They have a report for detached, which is single family homes, which is what I'm showing you. They have a report for in-town and a report for Foresight. Okay. Okay, let's X out of that. Okay. Clearly, there's only so much we're going to be able to go through in this report, but I want to show you some of my favorite slides. Okay. Almost all of these slides have detailed kind of summaries. So I would encourage you to, let me actually show you the very beginning. This is the first quarter 2021 Metro Market Report for single family detached residences, okay? If you want some background on the sources and kind of how they put all this information together, you can read here as well, okay? Scripts. Why should we show stats to prospective sellers? Because it communicates, it's kind of like what Candace was just talking about. It's either first person discussions or third person discussions, right? If I tell you the market is a particular way, you're like, that guy just wants to sell a home, right? But if I share a piece of market data with them, look, this is a third party that has come in and analyzed all the data, and here's the news, here's the stats. So sometimes that is more often than not, it's more trustworthy when the salesman says something. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's recognizing the 41 MLS or FMLS areas. These are them right here. So it goes all the way through like Paulding and West Cobb, Douglas County, inside, outside the perimeter, Cherokee, East Cobb, West Cobb, DeKalb, Forsyth, and Gwinnett. Okay. And it has lots of really cool stats. Like, for example, market share of closed transactions. Keller Williams says by far and away the largest market share in Metro Atlanta. Okay. Now we all know that well, let me tell you this. Actually, maybe you don't know. NAR says that approximately 4% of consumers choose their agent based on brand affiliation. So oftentimes to the consumer, it doesn't really make a difference which real estate company you're a part of. Why the real estate company is important is what happens behind the scenes, right? What kind of resources and tools and support and coaching and tech and all that do they give you so you can go out and share your information with the world? Make sense? Something like Chartmasters. Nevertheless, we have almost over 4 times the market share of our next greatest competitor in Metro Atlanta. Okay, almost 20% of the sales in Metro Atlanta involve a Keller Williams agent. Okay, pretty cool, huh? So we won't go through every slide here, but I do want to show you one thing is even in kind of the last 6-7 years, the level of inventory in the market and the level of sales in the market, the level of inventory is these red lines here. The number of months of supply is down here. And you can see basically midway through 2020, the supply totally tanked. That's why we're experiencing what we're experiencing right now. 30 offers, 7 offers, $60,000 over list price, all that stuff. Okay. This is what Andy and Leslie call party chatter. This is, remember, if somebody says, well, how's the market? And you say, the market's good, or the market's busy, or the market's fun, or whatever, that insinuates that's all you got, right? That you don't know a statistic that you could share with them. So instead of saying, oh, the market's great, you could say, hey, the median sales price is up 18.5% in Metro Atlanta this year, right? Why do you ask, right? Hey, the days on the market is down 72% from this time last year. Why do you ask, right? Hey, the median sales price to list price ratio is at 100% right now, right? That's up 3.2% from last year. Why do you ask, right? So you have some statistics to pull out of your pocket. Remember, we also have this here, which I've shown a little bit lately in FMLS, where we have this piece, that little widget on the home screen that says, it will say it in one moment, is what I meant to say. I got too many tabs open. Okay, so somebody says, hey, it's Monday. So let's say over the last 7 days, if you're on the phone with somebody, they say, oh, the market's, it's so crazy. I don't think anyone's doing anything. Say, wow, would it surprise you to know that there's been 2,141 people that have listed their home in the last 7 days, right? And we've had 974 people get a contract on their property in the last 7 days, right? And we've had 1,743 people that have sat at a closing table, sellers and buyers that have been successful. You see what I'm saying? If you want to, it's a little harder to do on a Monday, but if you wanted to do a today, hey, there's already been 33 properties that have gone under contract today, right? And 50 new listings today. Okay, so you can't use it as an excuse that the market's not happening, right? The market is the market. Production is a choice, right? You can participate in the market or you can not participate in the market. But there are 50 new people today that have taken a listing. Make sense? Okay, let's go back to this real fast. There's a lot of slides in here that I think are not quite as valuable, but I want to point out a couple that are really important. Here's a really important one. Okay, this is a slide that shows the most sales are in the first week on the market. First weeks on the market. So this is the number of properties that sell. Let me see if I can make this a little larger. Okay. The action happens at the very beginning of the listing period. So if you think a home should be 300 and the seller's pushing for 325 and there's no data to support 325, then once they finally get to a reality check of the price, the interest level is much lower, right? It's not such a strong way of doing it as it was, a couple of years ago. This is a bit of an abnormal market, right? So you need to make sure overpricing is not in a seller's best interest, right? Longer time on the market means multiple listing periods and additional price reductions. This is a slide that shows you how the seller's market has affected us, right? This is the peak of the buyer's market was January of 2009, and the current seller's market today, March of 2021. Look at the difference here, right? Was anyone selling back in the peak of the buyer's market? I can tell you, it's a whole different universe than it is today. 31,000 active listings versus 3,400. 16 months of supply versus 0.9 months of supply, right? 40.8% of the transactions, guys, back then were distressed sales, foreclosures and short sales. Now we're barely a 0.5%, right? The median home price is more than doubled. It used to be 145 days was the median on the market. Now it's 10. Median sales price is 80%. Now it's 100. So you can show somebody, like, if the last time they entered the real estate market was 2009, this might be a good slide to show them, hey, it's a little different now, right? What it took to be successful back then is a little different than what it takes to be successful nowadays, okay? Instances of price reduction. So for example, in 2021, the first quarter, 45.4% of the homes in order to sell needed a price reduction. This month, now it's 23.9. Again, we all are feeling that. Homes are not being reduced at quite the frequency because they don't have to be. Make sense? And then it breaks it down during price range. Okay, not a big fan of that slide. It's a little confusing, I think. Price reduction effect. If you do not need a price reduction on the home, basically any price range throughout the market, your median home price, list price to sales price ratio is at 100% or more. Okay, so for example, if you're talking with somebody that has a property between $3 and $499 and they don't need a price reduction to sell, they should sell it at a median level for the list price, right? Meaning half of the sales are higher than the list price and half the sales are lower than the list price. Okay. However, if they don't price it correctly at the beginning and it requires a price reduction, they should expect to get 94.4%. So let's just say it's a $400,000 home. That's $25,000 difference in money that they'll take away from the transaction. So Mr. Seller, what do you plan to do with that $25,000? See what I'm saying? They start looking at it a little differently when you turn it into dollars rather than percentages. And when you ask them a question like as if it's up to them to determine if they want to retain it or not. Okay. Here's a slide based on price ranges for days on the market. So same thing. We'll just look at this $300,000 to $400,000 or $300,000 to $500,000 mark. If they do need a price reduction, 78 days on the market. If they don't, 7 days on the market. Mr. Seller, would you prefer to wash your dishes and clean up your counters and clean up your house and make your beds for 78 days, or would you prefer to do it for 7 days? Let me help you. Make sense? This is a little confusing graph here. We'll go to a little bit more of a summary page, which is right here. We've talked a little bit about this. This is probably my favorite slide in all of Chartmasters right here, guys. This is page 24. They take 100 finalized listings. 13 of those listings, or 13%, will not sell. Okay. They're not going to sell, most likely because they're overpriced. Okay. Then the 87 that sold, 21 of them needed a price reduction, right? And those sold for 93.3% of list price in an average of 93 days. If instead they priced the home correctly at the beginning, right, which was the other 66 sales, they'll sell in an average of 7 days for 100% of list price, right? So if somebody's trying to get crazy with the price with you, you pull this out and say, hey, which of these do you want to be on, right? because 34 out of 100 of the properties that you see as you drive around are overpriced. About 2/3 of those will sell after a price reduction, and 1/3 of them won't even sell at all. Y'all follow that? This is how important pricing is. And they're third-party tools where you can just have in your presentation pack or in your bag. And if somebody's giving you an objection that this would get you out of it, say, hey, do you mind if I share some stats with you? Right? And it might be printed in color and laminated, and you pull it out. You only have to do it once every quarter anyway. Say, let me show you how the market's reacting to properties that are overpriced. And let me show you how the market is reacting to properties that are priced correctly at the very beginning. Make sense? They have this in PowerPoint as well. So if, for example, you want to create a customized one with a particular price range or a particular FMLS area, you can do that. You got to do that in the PowerPoint version one rather than the PDF version one. Okay. This is another really good slide for this current market, which is sales price to list price ratio over 100%, right? 3 to 500,000 again, 57.8% of listings are selling at or above list price. If you guys are not having a buyer's seminar or a buyer consultation, and first of all, you need to have that no matter what, because you got a lot of expectations you need to set, right? And you need to let them know that, hey, I can help you pursue any property, resale, relocation, new construction. Call me first. Anything you find on the web, call me first. I'll get you into it. Don't let them go running making phone calls to listing agents. That's going to be trouble, right? So Raven, if you were my buyer and you wanted to buy a home between $300,000 and $500,000 during our buyer consult, I would say to you, Raven, I want to show you this. It is a pretty strong seller's market right now. And what you're going to find is that homes are selling incredibly fast if they're priced correctly. In fact, they're selling a median of 100% in 7 days. So if we see something that we want, we got to be super aggressive. How do you feel about that? Oh, no problem. Or, oh, I can't do that because once I like it, I got to bring my husband, then I got to bring my aunt from Chattanooga, I got to bring my uncle from Cleveland, and then my grandma from California is going to fly in and see the home. We ain't got time for any of that. Home's going to be gone, right? So we need to make sure that whatever they're thinking is in alignment with what it's going to take to be successful. Make sense? So Raven, 57.8% of homes that you might consider will sell at list price or above list price. If we identify a property that meets all of your criteria and you and your family love it, would you be willing to pay over list price to get it? Now, I'm not asking you to overpay necessarily, and you'll still have protections in your contract, hopefully, right? And I'll walk you through all of that stuff, but I just want to make sure that you're prepared to be super assertive and aggressive. How do you feel about that? And they say, well, last time I bought a home, I bought it for 85% of list price. So I'm not going anywhere close to 100% of list price. Say, I appreciate that, but do you mind if I share some concerns with you about that strategy? Number one, it ain't gonna work. And here's why. You see what I'm saying? So the worst thing you can do is get into the car and get into a relationship with somebody who thinks the transaction is going to go one way, and there ain't no way in hell they're going to be successful running that play. Make sense? Right? I'd rather not work with you and let you down today than give you the false pretense that your plan is going to be successful and let you down after you find the perfect property. Make sense? Okay. That is hugely staggering in my opinion, right? Days on the market for homes that are selling at or above list price, right? Here's a summary report. Okay, summary report is on page 30. I highly recommend that you review the summary report, right? Median sales price, 18% up in first quarter 2021 compared to first quarter 2020, right? Let's see, price reductions down, sale listings very low, overpriced listings were 34% of the listings were overpriced in the first quarter 2021. That could be part of the video that we talked about last week, right? Did your home not sell the first time? It was probably a function of pricing, condition, and accessibility. In fact, 34% of properties were overpriced. 13 of them never sold. And the other 21 had to have a price reduction and a significant drop in the net number of dollars in your pocket. Would you like to be the one that doesn't have to deal with any of those circumstances and you want to learn the top 3 ways to get your home in the best shape possible? Call me, right? It's just, you can use these stats to show the public you know what you're doing and then give them advice on how to avoid being like those people. Does that make sense? Okay, and then it has some supplemental information where it looks at more specific property areas, cumulative monthly sales. We used to do, let me see where this chart is. Right, if somebody says, oh, hey, just send me all the foreclosures, you know it's time for a buyer seminar, okay? If you add up all the foreclosures and all the short sales, it's not even half, it's 0.6 of the market right now, 0.6% of the market, right? There was a slide in here, let's see if it's here. Yeah, right here. So I remember this slide, it goes back to 2003, and it shows the median price every month for the last 8 years, right? Now, look how high of a jump this is in 2021, guys. It's not healthy, and it's probably not sustainable either, right? So this is part of your guidance is, hey, let me show you a little bit about how the market is reacting, right? Black was 2020, blue was 2019, right? We're seeing numbers that we've never seen before in Metro Atlanta. Does that make sense? If you're a seller, it might be time to sell. Again, but we've heard somebody say, oh, they're getting closer. When we think they're getting closer, we got to go right back to the motivation, right? Tell me a little bit about, has anything changed with your respect to your desire to move to Chicago and be in the right school district up there by the summertime, right? Or, hey, tell me a little bit about your desire to move to California to be near your grandkids, right? Whatever it may be, go back to the motivation so that they can relive the fact that they're not where they want to be. And if we can help them see how to be successful in the market, they might be ready to sign paperwork. Does that make sense? Now, I know some of you guys are not particularly interested in the numbers of all this. Okay, I'm just going to ask you to memorize 1 or 2 stats that speak to you. Okay, and then when somebody said, and the one I would probably memorize is, what's the difference between a price reduced house and a not price reduced house, right? Or for a buyer, let me remind you that 57.8%, right? That's much more impactful, by the way, than saying 50 or around 50% or a little over 50%. If you tell them the exact number, they believe that you follow this stuff daily, which you should anyway. Does that make sense? Okay. What kind of questions do we have right now?
Bill, is that where you also find how Keller Williams is doing versus other agencies in the market with the green? You know what I'm talking about, with the green that they show in the team meeting?
That is not where you find that. Let me, if you can give me a second, let me think of where that would be. All right, hang on one second. Let me see if I can find it really fast. That is not through Chartmasters. That's something that we create outside. Hang on just 1 second. Let me see if I can find an updated version of that. We have something called the pink and green, which if I can't find it there, give me 2 seconds. Looks like it. Yeah, that's really old. Okay. Let me see if I can get the pink and greens for you guys to share. It's basically a study of how is Roswell's Market Center outperforming the Metro Atlanta market in general. Okay, I will tell you some stats on how Roswell has performed from last year, right? So for example, in the month of March, we closed altogether, the entire market center, we closed 155 units, whereas the month of March of 2020, 105 units. Okay, that's 51.5% higher, right? Listings taken volume is up year to date 37.1%. Listings sold up 24.9%. Listings taken up 39%. Sales volume per agent up 11%. Closed GCI up 61.5%. Our agents are making 61.5% more money than they were this time last year, right? Let's see. Profit share, guys. We gave out 78.5% more profit share in the month of March of 2021 versus March of 2020. So and by the way, this is called a multi-year trend report. Okay. So this is how, by the way, we value these market centers, right? So for example, if you don't know how profitable a market center is, or you don't know how the recruiting is going, or how the growth is going, or how the listings taken is going, you would never invest in a market center, right? Because you don't know what it's worth, right? So this is how we track it all, okay? This is why tracking is so important, okay? We also have there, if you guys can still see my screen, right? If you go to reports, if you go to, I'm almost done for the day. You guys are getting a little extra of me today, okay? If you go to associate, you have a multi-year trend report here too, right there. See that? Reports, associate, multi-year trend. So if you're tracking in Command everything from your appointments set to your appointments held, to your contacts, to your listings taken, listings sold, percentages and all that, you can track your performance over time. I looked at somebody's multi-year trend about 6 months ago, and they had never taken a listing in the month of February. Never. Like 10-year career, never taken a listing in the month of February, which probably means they took a whole month off for Thanksgiving. You see what I'm saying? All the activity that we do, we're going to see the results or the lack of results about 90 days later. So a lot of realtors, they pack it in around Thanksgiving time, and they wonder why their first quarter always sucks. Does that make sense? So if we look at this stuff, it tells the story. See what I'm saying? All right, next meeting will be, or next tomorrow. God, I can't even talk. Tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit more about LinkedIn, and what is our topic for tomorrow? Marketing schedules. We're going to talk a little bit about a pre-planned marketing system tomorrow. Okay. Don't forget, I spent a little extra time, or well, let me rephrase that. A lot of extra time yesterday making the email, the weekly email, a little bit more detailed. There's some additional links for pre-qualifying buyers and sellers, going on the appointment for buyers and sellers, scripts and dialogues on the presentation, asking the right questions to better understand the seller process and buyer process, buyer checklist, seller checklist. Please take some time to go back and watch the videos that we have created over the last year or so. And as always, it is a pleasure being in business with each and every one of you. You guys have an awesome day.